Limerence for 3 years or more, is it possible? And if you think you are experiencing that, what likely has led to this? I actually have had this question a few times, so in this video I thought I would address it, what my hunches are. Of course, the answer is different for different people. It's just what comes to mind when I first think of it. If I were seeing a client with limerence and they said it was over 3 years, I'm not going to assume I know exactly why that's happening, and I'm not going to say what I'm going to say today assuming that I know what's going on with you either. So you shouldn't take it as gospel. But I will share with you what I tend to think about as question marks. Is it this? Could it be this? What happens if you've had limerence for 3 years or more? Hi, my name is Maris. I'm a psychotherapist and psychology doctoral student living in London. And on this channel, I share my stories around being a trainee and anything I think you might find useful. If that sounds good to you, then stick around and subscribe. So let's start in the beginning. The beginning, of course, being where Tinov established the term limerence. That doesn't mean that the phenomenon wasn't being studied already. It was, but that's for another video. Limerence in that book, in the 1979 book, the estimate or the average of how long it takes for limerence to subside or go away is 1.5 to 3 years. So what happens after 3 years? In my practice as a coach and a therapist, I've noticed, yes, actually, that's pretty accurate. But it can last longer, or it can seem to last longer. What does that mean if it is lasting longer? In my view, what's important to look at here is how long have you been practicing being limerent? So even if you haven't done that deliberately, so you didn't decide, oh, I'm going to be limerent for 2 years or 3 years. The truth is, if you do something every day, which you are when you're limerent, the same thing for 2 years, do you not think you're going to be very good at that thing? Imagine if you played the piano morning to night every day for 2 years. Do you think you're going to be good? I think you're going to be pretty good. So if you practice something, you get good at it. It seems obvious, but people don't seem to think about limerence in the same way. If you've been limerent for 2 years, you have been focusing on fantasizing, repeatedly fantasizing, checking what this person is doing, getting emotional, whether or not they approve of you or not, and attention seeking, like seeking approval from them, whatever it is that you feel you need from them in order to feel good. These are all behaviors. They're things you get good at or you get used to. So there's a point where the limerence from a pull perspective, like the thing that pulls you in the beginning to seek them out, to want their approval and stuff, I think that is automatic. That is, you can say hormonal, neurological, whatever it is, it pulls you towards them and is probably somehow related to the machinery of falling in love. So the thing is about that pull is eventually it stops, but the pull made you do some behaviors. Eventually, when that thing, that automatic think about them energy is gone, it doesn't matter so much because you're already so used to at this time of day or pretty much all day thinking about them that it just becomes automatic. Even though the limerence itself makes you do the fantasizing and everything associated with it involuntarily at first, and maybe it's always involuntary, but if you've done it for 2 years and the limerence is not pushing itself into your awareness, let's say, you've still been practicing the very same technique, the very same escape into fantasy, the very same seeking behaviors, looking out for signs from them. So if you've been doing that regularly every single day, which you have done if you had limerence, then that is your habit, that's your normal, that's your default. So the first big element here is habit. The habit has become a part of your daily life. Limerence is your habit. So this is just what you're used to. It's just what you go to naturally, just in the same way if you've parked in the same spot, it's muscle memory. If you walk to school, it's always the same route, whatever it is. You don't need to think about it anymore. It just happens. So in a way, the limerence is just happening. What would you need to do? You'd need to start to think about, well, what is it that I'm doing? How can I become more conscious of the fact that that's happening? And how do I redirect this? How do I choose something else instead? Don't judge myself if it goes there, but find something else to do instead. Notice when it's happening. So another thing is around the habit, around the emotionality. So what that means is you may feel like you have the emotional richness of a relationship in a way by constantly getting this bliss and despair of limerence, of maybe yes in the pursuit and the maybe it'll work out and I just need to do more, or once we overcome this obstacle. But the truth is you are perhaps addicted to the idea that this is going to happen, and you still get the positive and negative feelings associated with it. And so perhaps it's more exciting than to go out there and pursue someone. That sounds strange, but when you go out and date someone, it's not always a big rush. You know, it's not always just intensity. Sometimes it's just a grounded form of caring and of developing feelings rather than that rush of limerence. So the rush of limerence can be something you seek potentially. If you've been doing it for 2-3 years or more, you may just be addicted to the idea and the feeling of this pursuit. It's kind of like it's a drug. It's kind of like something that stimulates you in a way that you need it to, or you just don't think that you can deal with having something that's less stimulating than that. So you're addicted to the habit, you're addicted to the thinking, feeling about this, and finally, perhaps this way of relating to someone is more comfortable to you than the risk of going out there and meeting someone. If, at least you're alone here, at least if you do something, you're by yourself and this person never actually sees you. Sometimes limerence causes you to embarrass yourself in front of the person too, but sometimes not. Sometimes you have control. You have control over the fantasies. You don't have control how a conversation goes with a stranger necessarily. Are you more comfortable limerence after 3 years? Because what is the alternative? And so that segues into more broadly, if you want to get over limerence after 3 years, have you taken genuine steps to move on? Have you found ways to replace your behavior with other things? Have you found ways to find meaning in your life outside of the limerence? If so, how? Be very honest with yourself. Where have you found that meaning? Where have you looked for it? What kind of work have you done to do it? You can't just, keep talking about being limerent, I'm limerent, what am I going to do? What you're going to do is anything but the limerence. You're going to go out there and find a reason to leave your house instead of daydreaming on the couch or whatever it looks like for you. If you haven't given yourself tangible ways to connect with the world, connect with what you care about outside of the limerence, instead of doing the limerence stuff after 3 years, then I would say it's almost no surprise that you are still limerent. Now, I don't think many people fall into this category. I think what happens is you just get a bit lost in what's happening. So don't take this as a judgmental thing. I think we just want to be honest with why is it continuing? What has allowed it to continue this long? I don't believe someone can be limerent for too much longer than 3 years or so. There's no hard rule, right? Of course, for some people it will be longer, for some people it will be shorter. It's more the principle. Is it that you're just most used to this way of living, even if it's suffering, because you haven't offered yourself an alternative, because you haven't explored outside of this lifestyle, because you've been running on autopilot instead of making the deliberate decision, I'm going to work on this, or I'm going to move on, or anything like that? These are the kinds of questions or things I would start to think about if you've been feeling limerent for more than 3 years. Also, it could have a different name after 3 years, potentially. I think when that rush of this person, and it really is a question, will they, won't they? Eventually, after 3 years, if it hasn't worked, or they haven't given you that attention, they haven't given you that approval, it's probably not going to happen, right? So what is keeping you there? The answers are endless, and I know this is a YouTube video, so I really can't give you any answers, like any real answers. I give you an idea, I give you something to think about, I give you ways of thinking. It's your job to do the work, it's your job to figure out a way out or to get help where you can. Generally, you shouldn't be looking for specific advice from the internet anyway, at least not for serious stuff like this. So I'm not suggesting that this video holds that for you, but hopefully it gives you an idea of how to start thinking about your experience and help you move forwards into getting help or doing the work yourself if you think that's the way forward for you. In general, more connected is better. Feeling more connected, being more connected with people, friends, family, whatever it looks like for you, is a really good antidote. So even though it doesn't feel as exciting, as thrilling as being limerent, it would be seriously worth investing in. And even if it doesn't feel like a particular thrill in the moment, remember that you're doing it in service of moving out of the limerence. So it's not going to feel ecstatic straight away, because the limerence is the ecstatic drug and you're trying to move away to something more grounded and calm. Okay, so I'll leave it there. Probably worth a few other videos for this one, but I'll wait for your questions. Make sure to put it in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Look after yourself.